I have IBS. I've had that all my life. And I also have hiatus hernia. So I've been doing various things. I've been taking probiotics for my gut for about a year now. And I've been taking omeprazole, but I don't really like drugs, so I stopped it. I cut it down over 4 weeks, and it should have been longer because I had a dreadful rebound reaction.
Oh, it's very common. Yeah.
I stopped the omeprazole because I was worried about the side effects.
When you were taking it, what were you experiencing? Because it does have an impact on the gut, so I'm interested in how that felt for you.
I didn't have any side effects, but a friend of mine had told me that a friend of hers had some serious side effects, and I looked at it and it had been fine. I mean, but I'd been taking it for years, so I kind of got a bit nervous about it all.
Okay.
I always feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place because any medication isn't perfect, but the hiatus hernia and gas reflux had affected my vocal cords and they were swollen. So when I went to respiratory in the hospital, they said to take Gaviscon at night, which I'd kind of been doing on and off. But then when I went back again, my vocal cords were fine. And I had to then think about it and go, well, I don't really want my vocal cords to be affected because they've already been affected by COVID. I used to be a semi-professional singer, and now my voice is crap when I'm singing. So I don't want it to get any worse.
Do you use any sort of support for the esophagus, like a slippery elm or marshmallow, something natural like that?
No, I hadn't considered that. I've been gargling with salt water.
Yeah. One of the most important things to sort of look after is definitely the esophagus when it comes to GERD, because that acid is coming up or there's a nasal drip. And it might be worth looking at something that can soothe it, sort of to maintain the good bacteria and also the alkaline environment that you want in the esophagus. You know, you want an acidic environment in the stomach, which potentially is weak in yours because acid reflux exists. But a marshmallow or a slippery elm would be really nice to, certainly as you're a singer, to keep the esophagus in really good shape. So I'd go ahead and get a slippery elm powder, something like that.
So you would use the powder just in a drink or something?
Yeah, exactly. You can just mix it in a drink and take it after meals.
It might be helpful to just illustrate the connection with when your stomach acid is not good enough compared to when it's over producing acid, because I think it's a really common misconception that almost everyone feels that if they're getting acid indigestion or reflux, it's because you've got too much acid in the stomach and it's then rising up and damaging the esophagus that's not really designed to withstand that level of acid. So, I mean, it makes logical sense, doesn't it? But actually, most cases of reflux that we see, it's actually an underproduction of acid or a real weakness in that area, like Hannah alluded to. And what then happens is you haven't really got the power. So the acid is such digestive power to start breaking down your proteins that without that power to digest the protein foods particularly, what happens is the food actually stays in your stomach a bit longer than it should because it's kind of hanging about. It's waiting to be broken down, and it's a bit of a cement mixer in your stomach if you want a visualization. And if that acid is not strong enough, it's like not quite got the chemicals it needs to break it down. So what happens is the cement mixer of your stomach has to go like harder and harder at it, and the muscular, it's very strong muscle inside of your stomach, but it actually pulls on that valve at the top. So you've got at the top of your stomach, you've got a valve. It's like a sphincter, and it sort of blocks off the esophagus from the stomach. So that's the esophagus, is the bit where you swallow things down your throat. That's the tube that leads to your stomach, and it's protected then by that sphincter. So if your acid is too low, that then does tend to weaken the sphincter, and any I mean, the acid in your stomach is so incredibly strong that even when it's weak for stomach acid, it's still extremely acidic in terms of what your esophagus can cope with. So very, very low, poor, deficient stomach acid will still burn your esophagus and give you those feelings. Is that something that you were aware of?
Yes, not quite in that great detail, but yes, and certainly more aware now. Well, I'm trying to support my gut as much as possible. Yeah. Also, I'm having acupuncture, and we're working specifically on the gut as well.
Good. That will help a lot, definitely. You mentioned that you're getting bloating and diarrhea and constipation as well.
Yes, I get both.
And you also mentioned that your GP was going to do a test, a stool test. Is that right?
Yeah. I have to... At the moment, I'm in constipation, so I have to wait. Yeah. And then I'll probably get a stool test for them next week. And he's put me on a new medication, famotidine.
Well, that might bring up a few bits and pieces. Sometimes when the bowels oscillate, there can definitely be some infection there. Sometimes fungal, but sometimes, definitely it's worth doing that test because the oscillation between the loose and the hard bowel can be something that's in the environment that doesn't want to be there for sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're doing a lot, and you're trying to do everything to resolve it. Would you say that you're a fast-paced person, Robin? Would you say that you're busy and or you take life in its stride?
Sorry. I'm an ATAC with chronic fatigue syndrome. So life is kind of a struggle because my head I want to do and my body's going, I don't think so, not today.
Right. And how long's the chronic fatigue diagnosis been there?
I've had it well over 20 years. It is better. I mean, I've been doing things that Heron technique, making sure that I rest when my body needs to rest, pacing myself.
Sure.
Again, the acupuncture.
Yeah.
I have been doing, quite a lot for my health over the years, but it is frustrating that things are slow because there's a lot of comorbidity, and I'm 71 as well.
There'll be a huge connection with your gut and the fatigue. Is that one of the connections you've explored over the years?
No, I didn't know there was a connection, really.
Yeah, there's many roots of connection, really, between the gut function, the digestive function, your ability to absorb nutrition, your microbiome, which is the bugs that live in your gut, and the way that they actually talk to your body, and your immune system. And so all of this, it's almost like endless possibilities of links, many, many, many links between your gut function and fatigue. So that, for the long term for you, that would be. And 71 is young. I would not think, it's because of my age, because actually that's sort of more of a cultural expectation there. And it's really no reason why you can't get your health back at the age of 71. So I would encourage you to pursue a real connection, maybe work with somebody that can really help you understand that connection, just because you've got overt gut issues and even structurally you've got some issues there with the hiatus hernia. So these things will then be giving fuel to the fire for chronic fatigue syndrome, and even down to its most basic primitive level, the mitochondria are the bits inside your cells that actually make energy for you. So this is how you get energy to think, to move, to do everything in your body. You need power, and that power comes from something in your cell called a mitochondria, and your mitochondria are actually derived from bacteria that our bodies started to work with to then actually optimize the way that we as humans produce energy. So we're almost so closely related and interlinked. And so our bacteria in our microbiome that we now know a lot more about than we did 10, 20, 30 years ago it actually drives the mitochondrial function in every human cell that we have. So it's not just like your gut might be causing it because you might not be eating properly. It's like so profound, the connection between the microbiome and the cellular function, which then drives everything. But so if your power is low and you've got chronic fatigue, there's a lot to be potentially explored there.
Right. Okay. Yes. I did a sensitivity test just before Christmas and found out about a lot of foods that I was sensitive to, particularly all dairy. So since then, I've changed the way I've been eating, and I've cut out all dairy and tried a lot of vegan alternatives, and noticed that a lot of puffiness seems to have gone, like from my ankles and knees.
One thing that I found really helpful, rather than kind of switching from one probiotic to another, is actually using a type of powdered fibre called PHGG. And that can really help. It sort of nurtures your own microbiome rather than relying on an external product, because they really don't colonize in your gut well at all. They just pass through and they have a transient effect. So as you say, you've been on it for a year, and then if you stop taking it within 2 weeks, you'll have the problems that you did. And whereas PHGG, it's partially hydrolyzed guar gum, and this is it's a really good food for your own microbiome. So it's like nurturing your own colonies back into power again, and that can be a really effective way of doing it. And it's very easy to take. Take a good heaped teaspoon in your coffee in the morning and you're done for the day. And it can be really helpful to do that, in my experience, rather than sort of continuing to take probiotics long term. That's not really what I would recommend. Would you agree?
Yeah, I use the PHGG a lot in clinic for exactly those reasons. And actually you might find it goes some way to resolving the constipation and the diarrhea. It can work in both ways. If you're constipated, it helps to loosen it, and if it's the other way, exactly the opposite. So the only thing I would say about PHGG, it's a 5 milligram dose. Start really small. Start with a sprinkle, then a double sprinkle, and build up to the maximum dose if you get to the maximum. But I use it a lot as well. Yeah,
it's a great one for kids as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kids that aren't eating vegetables, you can put the PHGG in.
And actually, I mean, while we're on the subject, it's great for making banana cake with. Because it's heat resistant.
We'll have to share that recipe then. That sounds exciting.
It's heat resistant,
yes,
so you
can
throw it in your baking.